Hi guys, in this video I'm going to teach you about shading, and this is Art 1, so I'm going to start from the very beginning for people who have never learned to shade before in their life. If you do shade a lot, I want you to have an open mind and don't think about the things that you already know that you hear I'm saying like, oh, I already know this. Try and hear the things that you didn't already know so you can expand your knowledge and get even better at it, okay? Another thing about the way I teach is that I don't grade you on completion. Don't think you watched the video, you did it, you turned it in, you're done. Because it's possible you didn't quite totally understand it, you haven't totally mastered the concept. So I'll come back to you with some feedback, some comments. I'll ask you to try again and resubmit. That's not because you're bad or you failed or anything like that. That's just my job as a teacher is to help you get better. So in fact, that's what you should expect. You should expect to submit this assignment, expect some comments back, expect to have to try again, okay? All right, a couple things about shading. So I prefer shading with a graphite pencil, not a mechanical pencil. And you wanna make sure that pencil is really nice and sharp, okay? It's not impossible to shade with a mechanical pencil. In fact, I have had students who've done it and have done a really good job. But I say just for starting, start with this, okay? If you find later that you can shade with a mechanical, great, okay? And you wanna make sure it's nice and sharp. And you're gonna draw along with me in this video. So if you need to, pause the video, go get a pencil, sharpen it, and come back. Okay, the other thing about shading is there's two ways to grip a pencil. There is this way that you use while you're writing. That is for getting the point of the lead on the paper and for precision. So if you need to do a really small area, you want control, you want to hold it like that, okay? Then for shading larger areas, you can hold it like this. So what I do is I put the pencil in my palm, grip it, and then some people like to support it further with their finger on the front. Sometimes I just hold it like this, okay? All right, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna turn the camera down to my paper now, and we'll start. Okay, so the reason that I hold my pencil like that is so that I can shade rather with the point of my lead, I can shade with the side of my lead. This way I can get, my mark is nice and thick, okay, rather than the point of the lead, which is thin, okay? And let me show you an example of bad shading or uncontrolled shading, okay? This is sloppy shading. This is shading I don't like. Here's why. One, it has gaps. See, there's little white spaces between the shades. It has darker areas, places that I didn't mean to go darker, and it's darker than the rest. And then it doesn't have clean edges, okay? So the edges are very out of control. It would be hard to stay within a shape that I were shading, okay? So now let's talk about controlled shading. So what I want you to do is draw a square on your paper about like an inch. And a student taught me that the distance between your two knuckles right here is an inch. So you can kind of gauge your box on that. It does not have to be perfect. You can bust out the ruler if you really want, but you do not have to, okay? My box is definitely not perfect. Okay, and now let's talk about shading this large area with control, what that looks like, okay? I'm going to put my tip of my pencil within my box right along the edge here, okay? Now if I wanted to start shading over here, I would turn my paper so that my lead was inside of the shape that I'm trying to shade. Does that make sense? Also, let's talk about being right-handed and left-handed, okay? Left-handers, you're going to be going this direction, okay? Okay, so, and then if you are a skilled artist or you go slow, you could cover the whole shape altogether. See, I'm going nice and slow and controlled, okay? Or you could move your pencil just back and forth a small amount and snake your way around. So I'll show you what I mean by snake your way around. Now it seems time consuming, but it's really not. What's more time consuming is shading like that and then having Mrs. Larson say, that's sloppy shading, try again. And then you having to redo it the right way, okay? That's more time consuming than just going slowly and doing it right the first time. Okay, so hopefully you shaded that square and you have a nice smooth, even tone. It may have a few areas that are a little bit darker than others, but that's okay. Have I smudged with my finger? No, I have not. Please refrain from doing that. I'll talk to you about why later, okay? Just refrain from the finger smudging. All right, now my next tip is layers. Pencil shading is about layers and layers and layers. So I'm going to flip my paper, and now I'm going to add a layer with my marks going in the opposite direction. So even if, because I want to show you, even if you have kind of liney shading, okay, say you just can't help it and you can always see the lines, if you add a layer of shading in the opposite direction with your lininess going the other way, it creates kind of like a basket weave texture, and it kind of cancels out the lines, okay? It creates an evenness. So that's what we're doing here, is I'm just going to add another layer. Maintaining control, trying to stay within my edges, not leaving gaps between my marks, white gaps. Trying to maintain an even pressure, okay? So it's actually pretty hard to shade a large area totally even, all the same value. I know we're just shading a square, but it can be challenging to do. All right, so that's how you'd shade an even tone of paper. Now let's talk about this graininess here. Even though I say this is even, you see little white specks in here? That is called the tooth of the paper, and that's okay, all right? That's just the texture of the paper. You don't need to smooth that out or smudge that out, okay? I actually think it's quite beautiful, and most people and artists enjoy paper with a bit of tooth to it. Now, if you're one of those people who absolutely hates it, then you can buy smooth paper on an art supply website, and you can, if you don't like the tooth of the paper. But a lot of artists, they'll buy, you know, paper with more tooth and texture because they like that graininess. So don't worry about the little tiny white spots in there. That doesn't need to be smoothed out, okay? All right, now let's talk about shading a transition. A transition is a gradual change from dark to light, okay? Well, a transition is a gradual change of anything. In shading, we're gonna talk about gradually changing from dark to light. And that has to do, most people know if they press hard with their pencil, it's darker. And if they press light with their pencil, it's lighter. You can also think about this as grip, how hard I'm gripping my pencil or how loosely I'm gripping my pencil. Okay, if I'm gripping it very loosely, like doing the pencil noodle trick, you know, where you make your pencil look like rubber. Wow, it's not really working on this camera, but that's how loose you want to hold your pencil to those really, really light values, okay? So let's practice just our pressure or our grip, shading dark, and gradually decreasing your pressure and fading. Okay, you can practice that a few times. All right, pressure is all fine and good if you only have to shade a small area like that. However, if you need to create a very gradual transition, like a background, say your background fades from dark to light, we need to know how to do it in a larger setting. So what I want you to do, and this is a good example, so what I want you to do is draw a rectangle on your paper that's like the size, I've been telling people, like the size of a regular size candy bar, not king size, not fun size candy bar, or like the length of a Starburst. Now, if you want exact measurements, if you don't know what size a candy bar is, it's like an inch by like 5 or 6 inches, okay? Okay, so when we need to blend and fade a large area, we actually do not want to create our darks with much pressure, okay? If I immediately start this and immediately start shading as dark as I possibly can, that's going to make it hard to ever really blend that well. It could damage my paper. It could just, you know, be there forever. I can't really erase it. And it can also create like a shininess. So one thing I don't like about pencil is when you shade really, really hard, like as hard as you possibly can, it creates more of a silvery, shiny effect rather than a dark effect. Let's see if I can show you. You guys know. Okay, there's the shine. Okay, we want to avoid those things. So the way we're going to build up our darks is through layers, layers and layers and layers. Okay, So you can draw along with me, so you don't have to sit here and just listen to me talk and shade while I'm filming. Okay, so I'm starting on the dark end, but I'm not shading dark at all. I'm just practicing that controlled shading that we just practiced. And I'm just kind of doing like a light to medium tone. And I'm slowly working my way over the rectangle. Now, one thing you might notice about my motions is they're kind of ovular. When I'm doing a large area, I find it's easier to work in ovals, overlapping ovals, okay? I'm still holding my pencil so the side of the paper is on the lead. Okay, now when I'm starting to get near the end of the box, I am tapering off, trying to hold my pencil as delicately as I possibly can. A very, very loose grip on there to create my light values that fade into the white. Okay? All right, and you probably guessed it, we're gonna add another layer. And I'm gonna turn my paper so that it's comfortable, so that the point of my pencil lead is within the shape that I'm shading. And yes, on the dark end, you can press a little bit harder than you did the last time. Okay, you can apply a little bit more pressure. So a good transition, how we know it's a good transition is that it is gradual. So it's gradually changes from dark to medium to medium light to very light to white, okay? And we don't want any abrupt changes. We don't want to see separations or boxes where we can abruptly see it change values. We want it to do that gradually. Okay, one thing I want you to do is near the middle point of your rectangle, mark it so that it's a visual reminder to tell yourself, oh, I need to start doing the light values now. I really need to start pressing lightly and be careful, because it's easy to get in the groove and just go too far too long. Okay, and each layer I add is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter. My last layer started here. Ended here. My layer that I just did ended more like right here. So each time it's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter because I'm only adding layers where it needs to get darker. Okay, third layer. Going to press a little bit harder. Hopefully, again, you're drawing along with me. You can pause if I get ahead of you. So that you're not just sitting here watching this long process. Pencil shading is a long process. Every time I have a student do a pencil shading assignment, I keep it pretty small because to get even smooth shading is quite a time-consuming process, okay? It's not my favorite medium. I love charcoal. I feel like it's much faster, but pencil is available. Everyone has pencils at home, and so it's a very popular medium for students. So I just like to teach you how to do it well. Okay, I'm probably on layer like number 5. Okay, and I'm going to turn my paper and go another direction. I'm starting to press a little bit harder on the darker end. Just being really careful to use ovular, overlapping ovals so that it continues to blend. And again, every layer I add is getting a little bit shorter and shorter and shorter. I'm basically not even going past the halfway point. Okay, I'm noticing this edge right here is getting really kind of sloppy. I haven't turned my paper that direction yet, so I'm going to turn it that direction so I can use the point of my pencil lead to kind of even that edge out. And I just put on lotion, so my pencil is kind of slippery in my hand. It's kind of harder to do these dark values and have a tight grip on my pencil. Okay, so let's talk about how things are going, okay? This is not a perfect transition. I'm kind of seeing some edges. So at one point you'd have to kind of stop, see where some errors are and try and fix those. And one thing you might notice is because it's getting darker and darker and darker, you may find yourself needing a longer and longer rectangle if your light end started to get too dark. So that's why I don't cap it off until I feel like confident that I have a white end. We do want one end to stay completely white. So when I feel like I have kept that, then I can kind of draw the end of my rectangle. So I have a good visual for my transition. Okay, now let's talk about finger smudging. So I talked about it a little bit. Some people feel tempted to fill in the tooth or the grain of their paper with finger smudging, but you don't need to do that. The tooth of the paper is a good thing, okay? The other reason I don't like finger smudging is because, let's look at what it does. I'm just going to do it on the bottom half, okay? This is what I tend to see a lot. It takes this beautiful transition of all these different values and smears them all down to one even tone of gray and a really kind of smudgy tone of gray. It's very easy to spot finger smudging. I know like maybe elementary school teachers teach it a lot. That's probably because younger kids don't quite have the control or the dexterity to create smooth shading, and so they teach you the finger smudging trick. You guys, you have the dexterity to create smoother shading, so you don't need it, but it really smudges down your light areas. It turns everything into an even tone of gray, and it's really easy to spot, and it's really kind of amateur looking. You can do good shading without it, okay? I think most people would agree this, what I did up here, it looks better than that, okay? Now, can you do a little bit of finger smudging just in the dark area, not smudging your whole thing? Yeah, you can. You can finger smudge a little bit as long as it's not overdone. If someone can recognize it and can tell you did it, then it's overdone, okay? So try and do it really, really subtly if you do it at all, okay? All right. You know, I think that's all I wanted to teach you. So for your assignment, you need to take a picture of this page. The things that I asked you to do were an even and square, okay? Transitions, small transitions just through pressure, and then the large transition that you built up through layers, okay? All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.